Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to be talking about the new massive case from, and it is massive, I mean look at this thing, it's ginormous. This is from TableWar. I've got some of their smaller ones. This thing is really tall. You can, even in this picture, see just how much stuff that holds. You can see there's some lights going on in there. That is something we're going to talk about later on in the video. So the thing that we're talking about is this right here. So this is the Mark III. There's, I think, 4 different colors, maybe 5. I just went with the blackout basic, right? Just black. Comes with the 4 shelves and a tray in the bottom. We're going to be talking about all this stuff as we go along in the video here. This is sort of, I guess you should say, some unboxing images. So here it is just coming out of the box. Lots of protective packaging, as you can see here. Those little boxes there, that's got your shelf inserts. So the 4 shelves are just there in the case, pretty much immobilized, and then all of your magnetizing, all that kind of stuff in those little containers there. So here's another little view right there. You can see those wrapped up real nice. You can arrange those slots any which way. You do not have to have the metal sheets on there. So if you've got a movement tray or whatever that fits in that, that's fine too. The metal on this stuff, it's got some really good hold, and it's not just using, say, refrigerator magnets. Obviously, you use your rare earth magnets. Those are really going to hold very strong. So good, nice level, straight pieces of sheet metal. So really fantastic. You can see them now in the case. Like all the other cases, the door also detaches. So those hinges there, you can take that off so you don't have it. I mean, obviously this would be a little bit clumsy, maybe in a tournament environment or just a crowded space. So you can get rid of that door. And it's not heavy, right? It's just a piece of plexiglass there. So yeah, it's not going to be super heavy. The case overall is, and if you have a lot of miniatures and books and dice, which we'll get into later, well, it might get a little bit heavy. Here's a look at that tray that's on the bottom, which, I mean, I put paint in there, brushes, books, basing supplies. I put a lot of stuff down in there. Now, in our next chapter, what I'm just going to talk about is the capacity. I mean, how much can this baby hold? Everybody wants to know. So I just got some miniatures. We're gonna throw them out there. One sort of a Lord of the Rings army with round bases, and then my Tomb King's army with some square bases. We're gonna talk about that next. In these pics, you can see I've got my basically storage cases, stackable. Actually, I have some videos of this on my Patreon page, how I make those. They're really handy for storing miniatures, way less handy for carrying them around. Even that little plastic thing that I've got for the dice, that's not super ideal. So let's see what this can hold. This is the tray. I've got a couple of the Middle-earth rule books in there. I've got the match play scenario. You can see it fits in there pretty nice. And I just threw, 4 packs of the dice in there. There could have been some rulers in there, some tape measures, some objective markers, whatever. That it's weird. It holds more than you think. It can get pretty heavy, but fortunately, that's kind of on the bottom. So it also kind of helps keep your case from tipping over. It's almost like you're weighting the bottom of it. Now, this is where there's some options here. So these trays that are in these inserts in the trays here, those are not attached in any way, shape, or form. I remember the original case I did, I just threw one of the shelves in here. I used some blue tack because I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to have it positioned in there. You can see I've got a couple of things there. I got some super glue and I've got some rare earth magnets. I mean, that's another thing you could do. You could magnetize the sheets to the tray if you wanted to. In the end, I just took hot glue. Didn't take much. I kind of put on the corners of each of those things. Basically, if I do at some point want to take those out, remove them, do whatever, it's a whole lot easier to do that with the hot glue than it is with the super glue. There will be way less destruction. Let's put it that way, trying to undo that. You can see I used the blue tack up there. I mean, that actually held pretty well. It can sometimes stick to the miniatures if they're getting too close to the edges, but it's an option. Now here's one of those storage cases. In here, we got 60 mil bases, we got 40, we got 25s, and we're gonna see just how much of this stuff can go onto the tableware trays. It's the orientation of this is so different, right? I wasn't sure how it was going to translate at all. I just started to position some things. Now here, just let's see, I could fit 340s across. I could fit basically 3 of the 60s on the big section there. So I could have gone, say, 9 horses and 1 row of 4 infantry. Obviously, with a lot of 40K stuff, you're looking at 32 mil bases. And then you got the oval type bases. I would imagine that I could fit 2 large oval bases on here. You can see some of the infantry scattered about there. So that's a decent amount of stuff. Now up in the right hand corner there, upper right hand corner, that's another faction there. So that's on a separate tray. So you can see just how much space those 60s take up. And what is kind of nice is that you can see that black frame around there. At first, I was thinking, geez, that's kind of taking away some extra metal from me. Well, you can see how the horses, how they're kind of hanging over the edge of that. Whereas with some of the other carrying cases that I've used, that would just be smashing into the wall of the case because the shelf goes really right up against the wall. So in some ways, it was neutral. What you gave up, you got back a little bit. Now here are the 2 levels inside that case. I want to say that's a little more than a half the case. Now, of course, you got back banners on horses and chariots. Those are probably taller than your average Space Marine. So I would imagine if the just straight up Space Marines, even Primaris, you might be able to squeeze 3 levels in the same space. Now, there's also another reason why these are a little further apart. You see that light that's up in the top there? It's a spoiler alert. That's another thing that we're going to be getting into here in the final segment. Now, on to fantasy square bases, rectangular bases. The Tomb Kings was at Cetra over there. That's 100 by 100 mil. All of the chariots, that snake, and the War Sphinx over there on the left, those are all 100 by 50s. And then I do believe all of the other stuff is on 40s. So the Ushabti that you see is sitting on that metal tray in the back. Uh, there's 125 mil, and then the Horsies, those are on 25 by 50s. So late cav. So obviously here I wasn't quite getting as much on each shelf as I was with the Lord of the Rings stuff. Just a bigger footprint, right? These big old flat bases taking up literally every square inch. Now, some of those things are really, really tall, especially those. There's 3 carrion birds next to the snake there. Man, those things got to be about 6, 7 inches tall. They are real tall. That's where a big case like this comes in, because the previous cases I've had, maybe about half the height of this. Well, I might only get this one shelf in there. If I also have the bottom shelf with all the books and everything and the dice, this might just be it. So with the taller case, maybe just the pure amount of miniatures, not the same as, well, Lord of the Rings stuff, or packing a bunch of Space Marines in there. I have also kind of tested this with Song of Ice and Fire miniatures. Also, well, they're rounds in a square tray, and I can fit, I think, 3 of the infantry slash cav units on these, and then there's some space for the individuals or even one of the rectangular bases. So you can get a decent amount of Song of Ice and Fire stuff in there as well. The last thing that I'm going to talk about here is using your carrying case as a display case. At Adepticon, it was as much out of desperation as anything else. There was no way I could bring my usual kind of display things. And I thought, how in the world am I going to do this? I had all these carrying cases that I was going to use, and I have a lot of these. They're just little LED lights. It's kind of just a long rectangular shape, and I've been using them around the house for years. Well, they've kind of gotten more advanced as time goes along. A lot of people use them for under cabinet lighting. Well, under shelves. What do we have in our carrying cases? Oh, they're shelves. So you can see here's a variety of much smaller cases. Now, almost every single base that you see out there is only a 25. So you can see you can pack a lot of stuff in these. You can see we got some vehicles in there. Now, this is actually at Little Wars. And you can see how those cases are illuminated there. Obviously, I've got some secondary lights and everything else. You can see some of the trays. Now, let's get to this right here. So a lot of the lights that you see inside, that would be these things. And these are, I'm not even going to bother. I was going to show the Amazon thing. There's a bazillion of these on Amazon. There's all you have to do is just look up LED under cabinet lights, whatever. The one different thing about these is that you see a little charging station. Each one, you could charge them individually if you want to plug them into a USB light or USB cord. You could actually just keep the cord on though, and they'll just continuously have power. The batteries on these, they last okay. Now, if you're like me and you've got hours and hours and hours you're going to be displaying this, I had several sets of these, and what I would do is I'd be charging some while the other ones were actually in the case illuminated. See that little remote there? That was another thing that was different from these than a lot of the other ones is I could set a timer. I could turn them on and off. I could dim them. I could make them lighter, whatever. So that's kind of nifty. There's a couple other ones there that are in the image, but these, I kind of like these the best. Now, they are metal, which means magnetized. You can see that little strip on the image on the right there. See, it's kind of a green plastic there. Well, that is a self-stick magnet right there. It's not terribly powerful. I'll tell you that right now. For as heavy as these things are, that doesn't have the most holding power. That's something we're going to be talking about as we go through this segment there. But you can just peel that off and you can stick it to whatever, which you see me doing that here. Now, unlike those shelves you saw at the very beginning in those pictures, those were flat, also metal. These are plastic and they're not flat whatsoever. You can see there's very little actual surface to stick these things onto. I did stick that on there. If that's the only thing you're going to use, you're going to need to use the super glue. But those refrigerator magnets you see over there, especially those big honking ones there, I would take my hot glue and I would stick those, because you can see again, there's those raised surfaces. There's really nowhere to magnetize this. I would take those heavy duty ones and stick at least two of them on the bottom of that thing. Now, also too, these only go in one way. These shelves, you can't just, it's not like those metal trays, you can stick them in whatever way you want practically. These have to go in a certain way. So I learned the hard way. I put them on there. I like them towards the front because, well, we wanted to illuminate the miniatures inside. If you put them towards the back, you're going to get shadows. Even in the middle, not ideal. You just basically want them in the front. Now, here is a standard case, right? It's mostly dark on the inside, and that's me shining a light inside there, trying to get as much light in the area as I could. So, kind of dark, not a whole lot of light. Well, there you go. That's just one light on the top of the case, one light on the bottom of the first shelf, or the second one, however you want to call it. And I kind of spread out the Tomb King stuff because let's put this display mode. We are not in carrying mode, we're in display mode. So I want to spread them out a little bit. We're kind of arranging these. I mean, is it the greatest display ever? No. However, if you need to pick it up and go somewhere, you put the door on there, you pick it up, you go away, boom. so you don't have to take a whole bunch of stuff down. Now, there's another aspect to this too, is that you can take those shelves, especially the one on the bottom, you pull that out a little bit. Remember I was talking about having the light at kind of the front of it? This is the other reason why you want the light towards the front. If that light was towards the back, you pull out that shelf a little bit so people can see the stuff on the bottom. Well, now you're really going to be lighting it from behind. It's all going to be in shadow. So it's the other reason why I try to position the lights as close to the front of the shelf as possible, or even the top of the case. Lighting stuff from the sides, that just doesn't work. You want it to come from above. So you can see that is some pretty decent illumination. Now in this one, we've got the door on there. So now it's basically secure. Now it can be carried around. Talking about those magnets again, the sheets that come with the actual lights, those are so weak. If I were to pick that up, if I shake that at all or bump into something, those lights are going to fall down onto the miniatures. That's why I would recommend highly reasonably powerful rare earth magnets. That's why I got those big ones. That's what I would use there, just to make sure those things don't go crashing down onto my miniatures, because they're okay if you're not going to be bumping that case and carrying it around. If it's going to be moving somewhere, rare earth magnets all the way for sure. Here's with the shelf pulled out. You can kind of look down at it. I mean, you can really easily see everything. Now, the light does kind of, when you're trying to take pictures of stuff, it maybe burns it out a little bit. But compared to total darkness or having to use a flash or something like that, that really is not bad. Now, here we are. Look at, we're back to the image where it all began. This is with the door attached. This is kind of what makes me glad that you can take the hinge off of these things and just kind of put the door aside. That's where this kind of makes a good display case. Those other ones that you saw in the very beginning there, well, I could those also basically well, the one doesn't, but those two wooden ones, the door is not a door. It's just basically a piece of plastic that slides down. So I could take that off. This other clear plastic case on the right-hand side, well, that door, you could say I had to kind of fold it over, and that was just kind of a pain. Here, we don't have to deal with that. So again, we can just take that door off of there, and good to display. That is a massive case. Now this is, again, it's from TableWar, and this is the blackout version. If you want to try and do something like this with your case, let's say you're not even doing it for display. Let's just, what about some light in there? All right, you have a little more light to play with. You can kind of see what's in there a little bit better. The one thing you will sacrifice is probably close to about 1 inch of space in your case if you're going to leave the lights in there, because when you slide those cases in, and you can kind of get an idea how tall those birdies are in the back there on that top shelf. Look how tall those things are. That's, you don't want those bumping into your lights. You pull out the lights, okay, you get your space back. So I hope that this is helpful for you. I mean, this is supposed to be a quick little video, nothing super fancy. I know we usually have painting videos on this channel, but this is just something I wanted to cover here, because this is by far the biggest case that I've ever had. I'm going to be certainly using it for carrying mostly my Lord of the Rings armies around, possibly bolt action too. So I want to just say thanks to TableWar for making a pretty nifty thing for us to get our miniatures carried around in. Hopefully this is helpful for you. Now, there are a whole bunch of painting videos on the channel here, so you can check those out. Object source lighting, non-metallic, lots of oil painting, whatever. Actually, all of these miniatures painted with the oils, all on stream, and that's on my Wapelius Twitch TV channel. Got some links to that. Oh, speaking of which, links, I'm going to put links to the TableWar case in the description, and I might find you some Amazon links too, but again, if you're from a different country or whatever, those links are worthless to you as far as the Amazon links. But again, thanks to TableWar for creating a really fantastic case, and I'll catch you on the next video.